Some days you beat the boat, and some days the boat beats you. You got me good today.
Hi, I'm Joe, and welcome to Motor City Boat Werks. Let's get to work.
I fell going down into the forward cabin, and I fell going down into the forward cabin. I've been using a milk crate for the forward cabin step for almost 8 years now, and I finally stepped on it the wrong way. It's happened before, but I was always able to catch myself. This time I had too much stuff in my hands. I was trying to make multiple trips into one, and I wasn't supporting myself up top, and when I stepped on the side of the egg crate, it went out from underneath me, and I fell on my side, and I hit my elbow and my back and around the front. This is how crazy it was. The first thing I thought was, man, I hope I didn't break my rib, and the second thing I thought was, man, if I had just had the cameras set up, that would be awesome. As I was carrying the cameras with me to get them set up inside the forward cabin for time lapse, and they weren't put together yet, and it's just stupid. And some days you beat the boat, and some days the boat beats you. You got me good today.
If I'm honest with you, this is not the first time that I've seriously hurt myself working on a boat. When I first started restoring boats, I cut the tip of my thumb off using a table saw. I was trying to rip some teak lumber for the inlays of the cockpit hatches of my classic fiberglass sailboat. I made a stupid mistake, and I reached for a piece of wood when I shouldn't have reached for it. And I took off the tip of my thumb. Now, it healed over the years, and thankfully there was no permanent damage. It was a painful lesson. If you're tired, or you lose your concentration, or you're trying to cut corners, you can hurt yourself. You have to pay attention to what you're doing when you're having shop time. No matter what, the project goes on. This is what led me to finally install the steps to the forward cabin of my Albin 27 pocket trawler.
So I'm inside the boat, and I'm working on the steps that go down into the forward cabin. So let's talk about this for a second. So why are we doing this? What is the purpose of doing this? Well, the purpose is we've got to come up with a way to extend out the bulkhead so that the forward cabin steps have something to mount to. There are blocks that the steps rest on, and they get screwed in place. Well, those blocks have to be able to be mounted to something. Therefore, the steps have to be mounted to something on the starboard side of the forward cabin steps. In the original boat, there was a bulkhead here, a hanging locker with had a little bulkhead, and they could mount into that. Okay, no problem. We tore the bulkhead out in order to enlarge the head to give us almost 20 square feet of room in the head. So what that means is we didn't bring the bulkhead all the way out. Now, we didn't want to bring the bulkhead all the way out because I have very broad shoulders, and I'm a big guy. And when a big guy is inside a tiny little boat, anything you can do to give us more shoulder room makes a big difference. Doesn't really matter down in the hips so much, but in the shoulders, I gotta have some room. If the bulkheads are scrubbing up against my shoulders, well, I feel like I'm stuffed in a little tiny space, like being in a broom closet. And I don't like that. So the bulkhead for the new head only came out so far. It leaves plenty of room around the forward cabin steps, the companionway area. And you can see over here that there's at least 6 inches, maybe almost 7-8 inches there of space. Well, that's where this piece down here has to be put in so that the steps have something to mount to. All right. So we're going to make that out of Coosa board. We're going to permanently install it to the wall. And it looks like this. So we've got 2 steps that lead down from the cockpit into the forward cabin here. One side is affixed to the galley cabinet area, and the other side was originally fixed over here to the hanging closet. But because I removed the hanging closet and expanded the head, well, there's no more hanging closet. So we got to figure out what to attach the other side of the steps to. Over here, I'm going to be installing a small hatch, and that's going to turn the icebox area into a little bit of storage. And it looks like it's going to fit there perfectly, so that's all good. Now we just got to figure out what it is we're going to do with this side over here. Now, unlike some of the pieces of furniture that I've made for the boat, these pieces, the refrigerator stand and the aft cabin cowling and these other cabinets and stuff that I've made, those things are designed to be kind of screwed in place, maybe glued in place with a marine sealant or adhesive or something like that. They can ultimately be removed so you can access systems and wiring and plumbing, things that are going on behind the scenes. This is part of my design that I want for my boat. I want to be able to access stuff in an emergency if I have to. This step area here in the forward cabin, this bulkhead we're going to extend out, well, it does not have to be removable. There's nothing behind there. In fact, it's going to create a little storage space, actually, if you want to put something in there. And we'll probably put a round hatch on it or something like that later on, so you can stuff something inside there and store it, right? You could make a cubby hole out of it, but I really want to ensure that this whole piece that's attached here, is 100% solid. Why? Because going up and down and in and out of the forward cabin, well, it puts a lot of stress on the steps, on the bulkheads that they're attached to, and it's probably the one place on the boat, other than the aft cabin maybe, that gets the most usage insofar as foot traffic and forces being applied to it on a daily basis. So it needs to be permanent. We're going to build it out of Coosa Board, and we're going to permanently attach it to the bulkhead here. And then the steps and the step blocks will get screwed and attached to that permanent bulkhead. We're going to make it out of Coosa Board, and the reason we're going to make it out of Coosa Board is because it's light, and because it's waterproof, and because you can put epoxy resin or fiberglass over the top of the Coosa Board and get a really nice finish. So this is the galley right here. And this is a permanent part of the boat, right? This is part of the pan liner. It's actually part of the pan liner here. And it's a solid fiberglass and marine plywood structure that was part of the original pan liner mold. It's 100% solid, and it's actually part of the integral structure of the boat. Remember the 2-cup analogy? Well, this is one of the things that gives rigidity to the hull. These shapes, these dimensions, there's marine plywood inside here. There, in some cases, it's 100% solid fiberglass, right? This top right here is at least a 1/2 inch thick, solid fiberglass. The walls here are at least, I would say 1 inch thick, probably with a 1/2 inch piece of coring, maybe even no coring, and 2 pieces of fiberglass assembled together, right? So you have a nice round over here. Of course, there'll be a nice flat top on here, but you have nice round over edges. That's what we're going for, and that's what we essentially want to create right over here. A piece that, when the steps are not there, man, it looks like this was over there, the way it was made from the factory. But we're going to do it out of Coosa Board.
If you're new to the channel and you're unfamiliar with these composite materials that I'm talking about, be sure you take a moment to watch the playlist I have. It's called Coosa Board and Composite Boat Building Materials. It'll cover many of the projects that I've built on the boat, and I talk specifically about the materials, where to get them, and their benefits in certain situations. Check it out. If you've been watching the channel, you know that I've been building furniture and cabinets and things like that for the boat, and that my go-to material is usually PVC foam board. Its trade name is Celtec, Sintra, or Comatex. One of the reasons that I use that product is because it already has an extremely smooth finish on it, and it takes paint really well. But there are times on a boat
when you want to have something that's a little more structural. PVC foam board is great for cabinets and drawers and things like that, but it's not for heavy-duty structural type of components, for items that are going to get a lot of wear and tear, have a lot of forces applied to them. While the epoxy will hold pieces of PVC foam board together, it's not as structurally sound as, say, Coosa board. When you apply epoxy to Coosa board, the joint that you've actually made using the epoxy is actually stronger than the surrounding material. I've done some of my own experiments with Coosa board back in the day when I first started using it, laminating pieces together horizontally and then perpendicularly and seeing how the joints hold up. And what I found is that often the material around the joint actually shears off and fails. The Coosa board itself will tear apart and be destroyed rather than the joint failing with the epoxy. This is the type of structure that you want to have for structural components on the boat. Things like the hardtop columns, perhaps a bulkhead that's going to be supporting stairs where you're constantly going up and down and applying a lot of force. So in the V-berth, I have to fabricate something to make up the distance between the head bulkhead and where the stairs would normally be mounted. And I've created a small box that will be screwed and then fiberglassed in place against the Coosa board bulkhead. The box itself is assembled using the screw and glue method. All right, so what I'm going to show you here is the next step. After you take your form that is constructed out of the pieces of Coosa board and you assemble them together using the screw and glue method. After that cures, you remove the screws, and now what you're left with is the basic shape of the object that you're making. And what you've got to do is make sure that all of the edges, all of the 90-degree edges are flush. Now, the reason we have to do this at this stage is because when you get to the point where you put the roundover bit on the 90-degree angles and you turn all those edges down, making them look all finished and professional, if your pieces are not put together and they're not 100% flush, well, that roundover will not be proper, and the router bit won't ride proper, and it won't put a nice roundover on there. So everything's got to be flush beforehand. And what that means is you've got to go and take the sander. I usually use a palm sander because you can take off just a little bit of material at a time. Use the palm sander, 60 grit paper, because you want to take off some material, and you're going to take it down and get all those 90 degrees flush. Now, it doesn't matter whether they're actually 90 degree anymore, but what you're trying to do is get the two pieces of Coosa board where they join in perpendicular to have them be flush. And you should be able to see the seam of the epoxy that you put in there during the screw and glue method. And that's what we have here. Take a look. All right, take a look here. So that's what we've got here. So if you could take a look, you can see the seam here, and where the seam is actually this fine line right here of epoxy. This is the sanding that I did on the Coosa board, kind of taking it down so it's flush. And when I run my hand over the top of this, I should be able, it should feel smooth. There should be no divots or channels or anything like that. Now look, it doesn't matter that it's already turned over, or that, like right here, it's turned over a little bit, or that doesn't even. It doesn't matter, because to the naked eye, you will not be able to see that. And when you put the 90-degree curve on here, of course, everything's going to come over. It'll be all uniform. So here's another example right here. You got to bring this down. Now, there's another reason this helps too. So, for example, during this screw and glue, this screw went right on the edge here. See that? And of course, it's on the side here. So when I fill the screw hole over here with epoxy, when I fill this screw hole, I'll also fill this divot right here. And you can fill any mistakes that you need. We'll do all of these screw holes going around here. The camera's a little crazy, but you can see the various screw holes that we have. This has a lot of screw holes. And we do this edge here. Take a look at this. Same thing right here. All right, now we're taking it flush here. Now, I didn't take it flush over here. Why? Because the roundover bit's going to hit that. And when we come around with the sander, after we do the roundover bit, well, we'll marry all this up and make it look proper. All right. So that's what we're doing here. Now we've got our rough shape of the wall piece, the bulkheads, that's going to go on the other side of the step. And we'll go put that, and what we'll do is we'll go put that inside the boat right now, kind of get an idea what it's going to look like. I also want to mark, I've got a little line here. I got a little line right here. And this is the very top of where the step should go to be parallel. We should be able to measure the height of the step down and then mount the block in here somewhere. That's what we're going to want to do.
I call this piece the cubbyhole bulkhead for the forward cabin steps. It's designed to create more storage, and anyone who's lived on a boat long term or cruised extensively knows you can never have enough storage. In addition to the cubbyhole bulkhead, I've also got to install a hatch, which will create storage in the old ice box. My Albin 27 pocket trawler is going to have a dual voltage refrigerator that's also capable of making ice. So I don't need the ice box anymore. And frankly, it was never insulated very well. A little bit noisy in here. I got the vacuum cleaner going so that I can suck up the dust once I'm done. But we're back today with the new chopper. This is a problem here. I think we're gonna need some more blades. This blade may not be very good. I got it at a certain discount big box store, and it's not very good quality. So we're probably gonna need a jigsaw also to do the radius in the corners. But the most important thing is it has not cut through the back of the cabinet here, which means we're going to need a much deeper blade than what we've got. We probably ½ inch short. So I'm going to have to get some different blades. Okay, well, that's what we got for now. Good thing we tried that out. Next episode, I'm going to finish the steps to the forward cabin of my pocket trawler. I'm gonna cut a big hole in my boat. It's on, we're chopping! And I'm gonna give you some tips on how to get a nice smooth surface on a piece of Coosa board when you're finishing one of your projects. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks for stopping by the works. I'll see you next time. Stay motivated.
If you like these videos, please hit the subscribe button. These videos would not be possible without your support.